Welcome to Bible Over Brews News. Deep thoughts fermented over times and headlines. I'm coming at you, Aaron Crew Juice Vaverka, and I've got Gumby. Hola. And I've got Keith.
Greetings from totally normal times.
And I've got Nate.
Bonjour.
Tonight we're going to be going over a lot of fun headlines, but first, we're diving into 19 crimes. That's right. We're switching it up tonight, and we're doing wine. So 19 crimes, it says, our current blend bears the traits as those banished into Australia. Defiant by nature, bold in character, always uncompromising. Its taste you'll never forget. This is their red wine from 2019.
We're doing wine because it's 2021.
That's right.
We're bringing in the new year.
Gumby. All right. This is a nice deep red as well.
Or you just want really Catholic on me. And this is something, you know.
I'm taking you to church.
It's either way I'm good with.
All right. It's got a nice nose on it. Wow. It's actually has a very deep flowery note.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm not much of a red wine drinker.
Yeah, I would almost call this to be closer to, say, a mountain Burgundy, because it's not sweet, but it's also not dry. It's riding that hard line in between.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Mm.
Would you use that in
Definitely
communion?
looks nice on camera.
I use whatever Father pours.
Do they use real wine? And I'm asking it serious because I don't know. Is it real wine?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're not using Kool-Aid.
I'm thinking about this Catholic thing.
We're so good at drinking.
I keep saying, Gumby's a closet Catholic.
And his family's Catholic.
Yeah.
Drink
Well,
like
like
a
I said, my
Catholic, you're
mom
halfway
was.
there.
What's that?
If you drink like a Catholic, you're halfway there.
I always think of Jim Gaffigan's response. He's like, I don't read the Bible. I don't have to because I'm Catholic.
That's the rumor, but I don't know. Maybe I'm hanging out with the wrong Catholics. They actually read the Bible.
He's like, my wife, she's Shiite Catholic.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I definitely enjoy my biblical exegesis. So, I actually teach the PSR. Yeah, I actually teach the PSR Bible studies for our parish. So I like going in deep.
PSR?
Yeah, the Parish School of Religion.
Wait, do you teach kids PSR now?
No, I teach adult and teen.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've just never heard it called like PSR for adults. I mean, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Just never heard it.
That's what Jonathan calls it. Yeah. So, yeah. But we're going to be diving in here. We're getting political tonight.
Oh, boy.
So, we're going to start out with the riots. So, years of white supremacy threats culminated in Capitol riots. Amid the American flags and Trump 2020 posters at the U.S. Capitol during last week's insurrection were far more sinister symbols. A man walking the halls of Congress carrying a Confederate flag, banners proclaiming white supremacy and anti-government extremism, a makeshift noose and gallows ominously erected outside. In many ways, this hate-filled display was the culmination of many others over the past few years, including the deadly 2017 Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, that gathered extremist factions from across the country under a single banner. Extremist groups including the pro-Trump far-right anti-government Oath Keepers and the Three Percenters, a loose anti-government network that's part of the militia movement, were among those descending on the halls of power on January 6th. The hateful imagery included an anti-Semitic Camp Auschwitz sweatshirt created years ago by white supremacists who sold them on the now-defunct website Aryanware. said Arya Tushman, Associate Director for the Anti-Defamation League Center on Extremism. Also among the rioters were members of Groyper Army, a loose network of white nationalists, the white supremacist New Jersey European Heritage Association, and the far-right extremist Proud Boys, along with other known white supremacists, Tushman said. While not all the anti-government groups were explicitly white supremacist, Tushman said many supported white supremacist beliefs. So I think that it really echoed.
What the crap? It's like, don't even say the loud part quietly. Holy crap, sorry, I just...
Yeah, I mean, I think it echoed extremely. I mean, I had people say, oh man, Antifa was in there. I was like, where?
Actually, they did they announced that they're going to prosecute an Antifa guy who was there because he was like just wanting to cause chaos. He's actually the guy that filmed Ashley Babbitt getting shot.
Oh, wow.
And he was like telling everybody, yeah, break down the door, da-da-da-da. But he actually isn't pro-Trump. He just wanted chaos in the government to be... Yeah,
I saw a caption for under his picture that said, he's just a guy who likes a good protest. Or a good riot, I should say.
Yeah.
A provocateur.
To no good.
That's right. Yeah. Kind of like the QAnon shaman. Yeah. That guy is now making memes all day long, or at least others are making memes all day long of the QAnon shaman.
Wait, is that the organic diet guy?
Yeah, it's him.
Oh, holy that's crap. My guy. I love organic. That
guy. Give me freedom.
Organic food on like paid by our tax dollars, which is interesting.
Yeah,
it's wild that he gets that, and like sometimes people post pictures of like what a typical prison meal looks like, and it's like a chicken nugget and like a plain noodle. It's absolutely ridiculous and heartbreaking. It's like seriously what we feed the average prisoner, and this guy gets an injunction so he can eat his fancy pants soy boy food. Okay.
Yeah, let's see how the other prisoners take that.
How do you really feel about that?
Well, I mean, think about it. You have this guy getting his organic food, but on the border, they couldn't even get like toothpaste and deodorant. I mean, it's sad. It's pathetic.
So I take some of this stuff with a grain of salt. I always have a hint of skepticism towards what I see that's coming out. I mean, I don't think everyone there was a white supremacist.
No.
I don't think everyone there had, Hitler's memoir in their back pocket.
No.
There were different nationalities represented there. And I'm pretty sure the leader of, is it the Proud Boys? One of the groups.
Proud Boys was there, yeah.
Is a Spanish guy. He's Dominican or something like that.
Oh,
no. Is that the dude that looks black?
Yeah.
I saw his picture. I was very...
Yeah, his last name is Dominguez or something like that. And I can't remember if he's Dominican or Cuban or something like that. So, do I think that there were people there who were white supremacists? Sure. I think they're probably pretty easy to stir up and coach on and get a lot of people out there like that.
Yeah.
Do I think that whole movement was about that? I don't know. I'm not buying all that.
No, I don't think that everybody there was there because of white supremacy. I do believe that white supremacy is what spurred it on, because there's been a consistent uprising of that across the last 4 years. So I do think that they were behind a lot of that, a lot of the propaganda. A lot of the movement, a lot of the rallies. I mean, you plainly had Confederate flags at most of those rallies. So that right there should tell you what you need to know.
I saw something interesting on Twitter this week about the history of lynchings. And if I recall correctly, it said up to a third of the people who would come to these lynchings and who you would see in these pictures of the huge crowds after it was over, up to a third of them were not even there because they were a member of the KKK or something, or the people actually doing doing the murder. They were just there for entertainment. They were just there as part of the zeitgeist. And so I think even if not everybody at the rally / riot / terrorist attack was a white supremacist, the fact that they're there and like supporting what's going on in and of itself puts them in that same category, whether they're, in the Proud Boys or not. Like, you all knew what you came there to do, I think, for the most part. So it's like nobody gets absolved of that. Like, once you saw the Confederate flags and other crap, you could have left.
Yeah.
Like most people did.
It's like guilty by proxy.
I think if you ask people, like, are you a white supremacist? An extremely small percentage of people would say yes. Yeah. But there's like it's why we call it systemic, is it, systemic racism invades kind of everything we do, like, without people even, thinking or knowing that it's racist. I just think of, countless times. How many times has someone told me a story about a supposed unsavory character, and then they whisper to me so nobody around us hears, he was black. Like, how many, people, that's the part, saying the part out loud. A lot of people won't even say the part out loud. That's still an issue, but I'm just looking forward to the day when that doesn't happen anymore, when people start telling a story and they're like, we can justify this thing about a person who shouldn't have been here. I mean, they probably should have been there, frankly. Yeah. But justify it based on race, like it's adding bona fides to your story because this neighborhood has a majority of white people and you saw a black person.
Yeah. And one of the points I like to bring up when it comes to the riots is people try to equate that to the protests from the summer, right? And they're like, oh, yeah, but look at everything that happened during the summer. I said...
We're going to have to start the swearing time.
I said... I said...
Go ahead.
I was going to say, there's a huge difference. Number one, there's a different reason for the protests. I said, but number two, you're also attacking the capital of the entire country. And not only attacking it, invading it and killing people in the process. They killed like 5 people within an hour. I mean, this is not simply a protest. They came to riot.
It was a terrorist attack. I mean, yeah. When I said that to, I don't know if I'd call him a friend, but a person that I know who's very conservative, but who was against the riots. And I called it a terrorist attack. And he's like, it's not a terrorist attack. And I had to literally look up the definition for it, which I'm going to do now because I don't remember exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Actually, no, I'm not because my internet's funky. But I'm pretty sure the definition was the use of violence or intimidation to accomplish political goals.
Sure.
Yeah. And I'm like, that is textbook terrorism.
Yeah.
And yet half the news won't even call it terrorism. Half the media won't even use that word. I'm just like, this is why we're here.
Yeah, that's an
because they won't call it what it is.
That's an interesting point that they won't call it terrorism because our government has a history of doing these kind of activities in other countries to overthrow democracies. Mm-hmm. We've done it in the Middle East all over.
Yeah.
So
it's happened here.
We have a textbook for how to delegitimize movements, and this is what I'm trying to say. I can't all out say that this was just a white supremacy thing, this whole movement. I can't say that everyone in there believed that I'm going to join this movement because it's, it's based on white supremacy. I just don't think that at all. But if you can delegitimize it from the very beginning, and that's all you're putting out on the news, just showing Confederate flags, just showing Nazi symbols or whatever it is that they want to show, these images get planted and boom, it cuts the feet off from underneath. So the fact that our government has a history of doing this, I don't know how far back. I'm thinking like to the 60s, all the way in Latin America. Mm-hmm. It's no surprise that it happened here to me, seeing something like this, because I don't know. Yeah. I just can't buy that it was just white supremacy that stirred the whole thing and propelled that whole movement.
Well, I believe it stirred it because it only takes 1 or 2 people to actually start something. I do believe a lot of it was stirred. Again, when you have Confederate flags at the rallies, if you look at the one guy walking around at the riot, He had like a huge Confederate flag just walking
I've
around
seen
with
that.
it.
That's what I'm saying. Of course, I've seen those things.
Yeah.
But those are the same things that I've seen in other countries, in other color revolutions.
I mean, yeah.
You want to overthrow a democracy, you divide it from within. You throw up, Sunni flags instead of Shiite flags in a population that's mostly Shiite.
Khalil, we need you here.
Or vice versa, Shiite versus the Sunni. My point is that most governments know how to divide movements from the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I have to totally back you on the fact that I do believe that the two-party system is ridiculous, and it's become everything our forefathers were trying to fight against. Everybody from Washington to Hamilton to all of them really, truly tried to avoid that two-party system, and they said it was the thing that they most regretted that came out of our Constitution.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it does.
Just in comparing the two different protests, I just think of the police basically opened the doors and they went in as they were the police opened the doors to them as they're beating down the police with Blue Lives flags, with the Thin Blue Line flag. And thinking back to the biggest Black Lives Matter protest I was at over the summer, most peaceful protest ever. They've got tons of helicopters flying overhead. They've got, policemen with guns on the tops of buildings while we're kneeling on the ground praying. You can't compare the response on both, in terms of law enforcement and the protesters between the two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and touching on that, I read a new article today. Get this. Somebody from the inside had already ripped all the panic buttons out. So when they went when they went back in to investigate, they found out the reason why nobody could hit a panic button was because they weren't there. They were physically ripped out.
Yeah. But you know what? I mean, that does bring up an interesting point, though. We're not talking about Disneyland.
Right.
We're talking about a place that is so heavily guarded, video cameraed. I mean, they got satellites going down on Washington. I mean, they know what kind of tires you have on your car before you even get to that district driving. So the fact that it was that easy for something to get out of control there, it baffles me.
Yeah.
It absolutely baffles me that it could get that out of control there.
Well, certain people that are in charge of calling in the reinforcements didn't do it, so... It's
proving my point. Why not? Why? If they didn't want to just snuff that right from the beginning, why wouldn't they?
Well, according to some, it's because they were watching TV gleefully.
I don't get it.
I'll leave that alone.
I mean, jets.
Keith knows what I'm saying.
Jets and airplanes can't even get in that airspace off track without the FFA sending up NORAD within miles, sending jets to accompany a plane that gets off track near that area. So I just find it hard to believe that it was that easy for that much insurrection to happen there.
Well, it's because there is such division. Actually, that's going to bring us to point one. Ready? So point one, there are signs of deep split within the Republican Party. So some of the most high-profile members of Republican leadership aren't denouncing the Democratic effort. Quite the contrary. Congresswoman Liz Cheney of Wyoming, the chairwoman of the House Republican Conference, announced on Tuesday that she would join Democrats and a handful of House Republicans in voting to impeach Trump. On Wednesday, Senator Mitch McConnell, the highest-ranking Republican in his chamber, indicated to his colleagues that he is undecided on which way he would vote. Privately, McConnell has left associates with the impression that he's glad Democrats are moving to impeach Trump a second time. Elsewhere, freshman lawmakers are feuding with each other. Congresswoman Nancy Mace of South Carolina and Congressman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has supported the QAnon terrorist movement, got into a heated exchange, according to Axios. Mace blamed Greene and other QAnon supporters for the attack on the Capitol. An ongoing question among members of Congress is if any of the 10 House Republicans who split with their party and voted to impeach Trump will face any kind of blowback. Some lawmakers privately supported impeachment, but worried voting for impeachment could physically endanger them or their families from outraged Trump supporters. So that's point one. And I honestly believe that more Republicans would actually vote to impeach him if they weren't worried about their own personal safety.
Like I'm struggling to figure out what, like, say, like a guy like Mitch. I mean, obviously, I know Mitch McConnell doesn't really believe anything. He just wants to win stuff. Like he just wants to die. He's in there for power's sake, and maybe that's what the most of the Republicans that didn't speak up, and maybe even some of the ones that did, it's all a cynical power grab. And maybe that's true for everybody, but it's just remarkable. Like, I think you get a sense that most people don't really, they would prefer, at least prefer Trumpism without Trump. I don't know if it works without Trump, but I think they would at least prefer it because he sucks all the oxygen out of the room. Nobody's becoming president as long as he's around. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, how many political ambitions did he derail just by showing up and, talking Trump University and all this crap? I don't know where I'm going, except it's just weird. You don't get the sense that these people really want anything except the adulation of all these people around them and power.
Yeah.
And so they'll do anything that'll maintain that. And if they can hold their finger up and decide, well, there's enough white supremacist friendly people in my district that they'll support me, no matter how much I stand up for the white supremacist president who incited a white supremacist riot. Okay, sure, I'll do it.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a bit of a problem on that point. It kind of leads into point two, so right off the bat, which is the most bipartisan impeachment in American history. So unlike the last time Democrats impeached Trump, there's a higher level of bipartisan support for the move. Congressman Kevin McCarthy, the House Minority Leader and top-ranking Republican in that chamber, said during a speech on Wednesday that Trump was partially to blame for the mob assault on the Capitol last week. 10 House Republicans also joined Democrats in voting in favor of impeaching Trump. It's unclear how many Republicans are willing to convict Trump in the Senate. A two-thirds majority of the Senate is needed. McConnell's potential openness to convict suggests there may be more than one or two senators willing to vote to convict him. That's all a far cry from last time Trump was impeached, where it was almost completely a party line vote. Trump was not convicted then.
My question is, like, I hate to be that guy, but, like, what's the point? The inauguration of Biden is in 2 days. So what will be determined by their conviction, which probably will happen?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, they believe it or not, a couple of them have already said why. So they want to prevent him from trying to run in the future. So that's honestly, they've said that if they can do a second impeachment and convict him of anything, it will prevent him from running in the future. And that's really what the Democrats are vying for. So,
running for president or something else?
Yeah, for trying to stop him from ever running again.
Doesn't that suggest something intrinsically, any other words that end with "ly," is wrong with our system that allowed a Trump or a person like Trump to get there to begin with?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, who cares if Trump is in or out now? If we get another person like a Trump or ends up having, power grabs like a Trump, or the point is, if the system is corrupt, by all other means, I think Trump was like a mafia boss. He's like a casino magnate lord.
So I actually not to
real estate mogul.
Not to go too far into that realm, but I personally know somebody who worked for Trump at the casinos, and I'm not going to go into the stories now. We could talk afterwards, but there is other influences. So
yeah, it just baffles me that there doesn't seem to be a conversation around that there's something still wrong with the system that hasn't changed, because the same system is just going to put a Biden in so that, yay, we can have 4 more years of a different thing and until we get the next Trump in or whatever. We're just going to keep doing this back and forth. I don't know.
I mean,
say something.
if you get 4 years out of Biden, go ahead.
Right.
Jumping back a little bit, kind of what's the point? I think it is important to view impeachment by the House and the impeachment trial in isolation. From the House's perspective, they feel like they have to make some kind of statement that if you attempt to commit sedition against the United States as the president of the United States, that they should at least, mark a line and say, that's not okay, that's probably impeachable. If they don't impeach him, that's like the House of Representatives saying that's not really an impeachable offense. And at that point, what is? The trial, on the other hand, the only real point at this point is to keep him out of office.
That's a good point. What is? Bill Clinton's like, you should have went with the cigar, buddy.
but getting to the point of, hey, what's the point if in terms of whether he runs or not, what's intrinsically wrong? And there is a lot wrong that you can just appeal to your base. Number one, that your base can be so, have such disordered desires that they would want something like Trump. Yeah. But also that you can win based on that. But, oh man, I can't remember where I was going with that. All I know was there is signs that the system is maybe healing itself just a little bit. Have y'all ever seen Hamilton?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Anybody remember the point where Hamilton he's his affair with Maria Reynolds is revealed, and then there's a song with Thomas Jefferson going, "You ain't never gonna be president now. That's one less thing to worry about." I just, that scene was going over and over in my head as I watched Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley just tripping over themselves to try to continue to contest the election. I'm just like, you ain't never gonna be president now. I mean, maybe there could be a Trumpier guy than those two, but at least if it's looking like those guys' political ambitions are just going down the drain, that's some small victory.
Yeah, I know. I'm just thinking one didn't have to look too hard to find those things on Trump at all before he ever became president.
No.
And I would imagine there, you guys may not want to hear it, but there may be a skeleton or two in Biden's closet.
Oh, so, more than likely.
Or two. What do you mean? Black people have been trying to tell y'all he's...
Go ahead and say it, man, because I feel the same way.
He's problematic.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Him and Kamala, both problematic.
Yeah.
That's who gets elected. That is the system. You don't get the good guys. They don't work for president.
So
apparently.
You feel like it's selected.
What do you mean? Are you asking if I'm saying that it's rigged?
Elected true elections, or are they selected for us?
I'm not going to comment on that. What I was trying to say is that bad guys are easily elected.
Yeah.
All right.
I agree with that.
That's fair.
I agree with that. But to your Keith point, that actually hits on point number 3 from The Guardian, and that's the vast majority of Republicans refuse to concede any fault. And that's true. Throughout the debate on Wednesday, 2 patterns emerged among the arguments Republicans made. Deflect and denounce. Republicans repeatedly denounced the mob attack last week. Violence has no place in our politics. Period. I wholeheartedly condemn last week's senseless acts of violence, and I strongly reiterate that calls remain peaceful in the weeks ahead. The Republican National Committee chairwoman, Ronna McDaniel, said in a statement. Trump himself also released a statement saying that he wanted to see a peaceful transition and inauguration for Joe Biden, the president-elect. Republicans also cried hypocrisy against Democrats for, in their words, ignoring the damage inflicted during Black Lives Matter protests this past summer. Democrats are on record supporting violence when it supports their cause, Green said during a floor speech. Democrats will take away everyone's guns just as much as they have guards with guns. So it's again it's double speak on really both their parts. Both parties are finding their own faults.
Double speak, understatement of the century. Yep.
I do think there's a different. I mean, if we just talk about what it takes to get a Trump into office versus I mean, yes, Biden has a lot of problems and Trump has a lot of problems, but Trump's problems are unique and they're really deep. I think one of the lasting legacies that we're going to find as we get in here is how he literally didn't staff any of the bureaucracies with anybody competent, and that has like really basic problems for like telling a town if there's a tornado about to hit them, or handling nuclear waste, or dealing with a pandemic. All these little things. I even think of the IRS has been hitting cuts for years, but I'm sure Trump did it no favors. I'm still waiting for my tax refund. It's been almost a year. And I'm not the only one. You go on IRS Reddit and it's all over the place. Like, and these people don't get the next stimulus either until they submit their next tax refund, which maybe will get delayed again for a year.
Yeah.
Really? And even just, in the news with the pandemic this week, like we're finding out, there wasn't actually a second stockpile of vaccines ready to be released right away. They lied about that. Holy crap. I mean, by having someone just who's not only the typical evil politician, problematic politician, but having someone who's uniquely dumb, unread, obsessed only with their own, self-enrichment, has real consequences, and they aren't just a bunch of white supremacists will knock down the Capitol on your behalf variety.
Yeah. I think you might be surprised at the ineptitude of some previous presidents, but I can't specifically say, that there were presidents appointing people that were incompetent. But I mean, it would seem that in the past, that is not outside of the question. Because among the three people that got impeached, there's also, I think, Andrew Jackson. Mm-hmm. He got impeached for an offense very similar to that, trying to appoint somebody that wasn't legitimate.
Yeah. Well, not to mention that, not only did he put people in positions that they were not qualified for, he also put people in positions that were huge conflicts of interest.
That's not true. Jared Kushner, he could solve the Middle East problem. Come on.
I feel like he's the only dude in the group that I might have trusted.
Really?
Because he's not in the family and has no reason to really.
Oh, he's all in the family, baby. He's all in the family.
No, he's really about that money. That's really all he cares about.
You're not lying. You're not lying. But for example, there was a certain person put into charge of the head of the EPA who was a former director at Monsanto, and maybe that's not the best position for them. I'm just saying.
Conspiracy theorist.
I mean, especially when they go in and try to erect laws to protect Monsanto and to make sure that their carcinogens can't be labeled as carcinogens. So I'm just saying.
Surprising that the organic guy supported Trump's thing.
Exactly.
But just made me think of something funny about Jared Kushner. I just finished reading Bob Woodward's Rage, which was where the infamous quote about Trump talking about I just want to downplay the virus to keep people calm. Where that came from originally over his interviews over this past year, and that part's actually pretty boring in the book because it's just Trump saying the same thing over and over, like the virus is going to go away, blah blah blah. But the Jared Kushner quotes are actually really interesting. Like, Jared is just constantly like, any dumb thing Trump does, Jared's just talking about how genius it is. Like, he's like, you don't get this guy. He says this just to keep them on their toes, and then he just totally outsmarts them all, and he succeeds every time.
That's what Steve Bannon does too. It is really funny.
Kofefe.
You don't understand. Kofefe was a stroke of genius. Everybody was talking about Kofefe while we killed a bunch of people. It's like,
well, I mean, in my opinion, I think Kushner was just BB's point man in the White House. If I'm being honest, Netanyahu's point man. So,
Uh-oh. Hey, where's Louis Farrakhan? Can he join us tonight?
taboo.
Let's talk about
I feel like a Jared Kushner episode for Lensing.
Well, we could add that to our. So we are going to be doing a full conspiracy episode. So we can add that to it.
Oh boy, we're gonna get in trouble for that.
Yeah, oh yeah, we'll be touching on flat Earth and QAnon and everything else. So,
Is that how you say that word, QAnon?
as far as I know, and no one actually has given me a proper pronunciation, so I believe it's
I would say
QAnon.
QAnon, but
QAnon,
it's not like I hear a bunch of people. I haven't heard anybody say anything for the past year because I've been in isolation. So
Just say Q.
What do I know?
Just say Q.
Q.
I always thought we were talking about where the Cavs played. I don't know what.
Oh yeah.
I don't even know what the QAnon thing
Oh,
is.
yeah, besides great branding, the QAnon Arena. Oh man.
Is Cleveland?
I
like
honestly don't know what the conspiracy about QAnon is about. Like, what is the fundamental?
It's not one thing. It's a series of things.
Okay,
many stupid things?
so I'm assuming white supremacy.
That's in there among many things.
Integral, yes.
Okay,
Yeah. We're gonna do a whole episode on conspiracies. That'll be in there.
all right.
And really, we have to because there are so many Christians that are involved in these conspiracies. We have to cover them. Just like, QAnon, right? Flat Earth. I was shocked at how many Christians are actually endorsing Flat Earth still. So we will be
Skibo.
so we will be covering a full episode on nothing but conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
So because we have to help Christians to think for themselves.
So he looks right at me when he says conspiracy theory. Nice.
Well, I mean, you suggested a few up to this point, man, so maybe you're our resident expert.
Tell us what you really think about the moon landing.
Actually, no.
That brings us into point 4, though. The Senate is a mystery. How things will shake out in the Senate is a mystery. McConnell wrote in a letter to colleagues that he has not made, quote, made a final decision on how I will vote, and I intend to listen to legal arguments when they are presented to the Senate, close quote. When Trump was impeached the first time, only Senator Mitt Romney of Utah joined Democrats in voting to convict. This time, it's conceivable a few more Republicans could join Democrats, though they need 17 to convict. McConnell himself said in another statement after the House vote that the earliest a trial could begin would be after Biden is sworn in on 20 January. That's at odds with a statement from McConnell's Democratic counterpart, Chuck Schumer. Quote, a Senate trial can begin immediately with agreement from the current Senate Majority Leader to reconvene the Senate for an emergency session. There's a lot of S's in this. I'm stumbling over myself. Or it will begin after January 19th. What's that?
Just don't cuss.
Right. But make no mistake, there will be an impeachment trial in the United States Senate. There will be a vote on convicting the president for high crimes and misdemeanors. And if the president is convicted, there will be a vote on barring him from running again. Close quote. Schumer said in a statement. So that's going to be... Oh, man. It's going to be a hurricane.
It's going to be president.
I honestly feel like Nate did. I mean, I don't really see the point at this point. I mean...
It doesn't even sound like they can convict. They need 17, and not nearly that many have committed. Right?
Yeah.
That was McConnell speak for "I'm not voting for it."
Probably.
It's symbolic more than anything that they seem like they're trying. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, even.
But it's bad for the base. Like McConnell's voters wouldn't want him to vote to impeach. Period.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the 10 that did join were John Kotko, Liz Cheney, Adam Kissinger, Fred Upton, Jaime Herrera, Butler. I think it's how I say it. Butler? Okay. Dan Newhouse, Peter Mayhew, Tom Rice, Anthony Gonzalez. And David Falato, what's that?
You ain't say Gonzalez.
No, I didn't say.
Ohio.
Of Ohio, yep.
Ah.
So those were the first 10 that actually did vote. And it is, so I will say, like him or don't like him, the one Republican I have liked through all of this, just because he has stood up for his own personal conviction, has been Mitt Romney. I have liked that about him, that he actually went against his own house for his personal convictions. Again, I'm not saying that he's right. I'm not saying he's wrong. But I will say I love the fact that he put his convictions on the line and he stood by his convictions despite what others said. I do like that about him. And he's done that the entire time.
Mitt is not a total turd. I will give him credit for that.
Yeah.
Not a total turd.
No, I don't give credit to politicians, and I'll just say that he's in a much safer position because I don't think Utahns or whatever he's from are necessarily of that extreme type of conservative, unlike the South.
Yeah. Yeah. And did you see where they talked to him during the protests?
No.
Okay, so Mitt was the only Republican that actually walked with the people during the protests. The only one. And he was out there in the streets walking with them during the protests. And then
which protests?
During the summer.
Oh, during the summer. Okay.
Yeah, not the riot.
I don't think Mitt was out there on January.
No. So during the George Floyd protests, he was out there marching with the people. And he said one of the coolest things. They stopped him at his house for an interview, and they said, "Why did you do this? Why did you go against your own house to march with everybody?" He held up a picture of his father marching with MLK, and he said, "Because my dad did. And because my dad knew right from wrong, I know right from wrong, and that's why I'm marching."
Tell him.
I think Mitt was the only Republican who actually said the words Black Lives Matter all summer.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. So that speaks volumes, the fact that he marched forward despite what his own, house said. So
his speech during the certification vote, when they broke. By the way, I don't know about y'all, but I became far more acquainted with C-SPAN over the past week. But the part where they broke off into the two chambers to debate the contesting the various votes, the Arizona and Pennsylvania. Mitt's speech during Arizona's was actually pretty good. There was one point where he says, "We have to stop lying to our people. We have to stop lying that Trump won the election," which gets to the heart of whether it's 100% white supremacists or 2% white supremacists and 98% white supremacist sympathizers, is that everybody was galvanized together to show up there because everybody in their political orbit has been repeating the lie that Trump won the election when he very clearly didn't. And I was glad that they called it out.
Did you see that video of the lady? I think it was on the day of the protests, or the terrorist attack, rather, that was like basically in tears, like, "Did my president lie to me?"
Oh, yeah. Is that the same one who got pepper sprayed, or is that a different one?
I don't know. I didn't actually watch the whole segment. But, it's interesting that people are like, to start using that terminology shows these people like, yeah, this dude led you astray. And people really were not, they had no idea. Some of these people had really no idea, still don't. It's just super sad.
You ready?
No,
what
I agree.
causes a person to believe a politician in general? I don't get that. Maybe it's just because I'm African American. If a politician is telling me something, like, what compels you to believe it? Especially if it's outrageous.
No, I agree. Yeah, I'll tell you what, I have neighbors who are huge Trump fans, and it's been shocking to me the amount of cognitive dissonance they've shown when it comes to reality. because, I mean, they straight up are still claiming, after 3 different Republicans oversaw recounts, they're still under the impression that people are lying to them. No, go ahead.
Even though it's hard to relate to, like, a lot of people do take at face value what a politician who they believe in and they agree with, what they say. I mean, this goes back to that one video when we were doing our commentary on the RNC and DNC, and during the DNC they had the daughter of the man who died of COVID, and she said that her dad's one pre-existing condition was believing what Donald Trump says.
Right.
And like it or not, people trust, like, if you have a guy high up who, against all odds, won the election and is supposedly fighting for your values, whatever your values are, and he says that COVID is a hoax, if you're drinking the Kool-Aid already, you're just going to keep sipping that, and you're going to believe that COVID is a hoax or the election was stolen, and you're going to at least, change your behavior because of that, and maybe possibly you're going to show up at the Capitol because of it.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Can you even imagine? Like, that's wild.
Yeah. Well, there was a Republican, I forget which post it was. There was a Republican who posted and said, think about it. You either have to believe that all of Congress is lying, all of the Senate is lying, that all of the voters are lying, all the vote counters are lying, and that the recounters are lying, or believe one man.
I was pretending to be a Trump supporter.
We had to bleep that out for the children. For our children listeners and subscribers. all 3 of them.
All my children think I'm like a Trump diehard. Which, actually, it's really funny. I'd like to have a podcast where I just have my children explain politics. Like, my oldest son, like, no politician passes the BS test. He has been, like, I don't know, I have to stop him sometimes. I'm like, you're going to get us killed if you talk about Trump like that in this room here. Don't say those things at church.
That's funny. Have you been talking to Gumby?
Before we move to point 5, I'm going to introduce one more wine for the night. Mm-hmm. This, believe it or not, is from Aldi's. And it's actually a wine I enjoy from Aldi's. So it's aged in bourbon barrels. This Cabernet Sauvignon draws its rich flavor from the charred barrels that once aged American whiskey. Aromas of ripe black cherries and dried herbs with notes of charred vanilla, toast, and a warm finish. But again, this comes from Aldi's. And this is their quarter cut bourbon barrel aged wine. It's a Cabernet Sauvignon from 2018.
That is something I can believe in.
It is so good. Give that a whiff. Give it a whiff. I mean, right off the note, it's got that nice,
really dumb for not
deep
looking at all his wine selection.
There's that deep, flowery note that you get. That's part bourbon, right?
Mm-hmm. I smell the vanilla.
Oh yeah.
It passed the sniffer
Oh
test.
my Lord, that's so good. And it's not overt. It's not like, wow, that's definitely a bourbon. It has notes of bourbon, right? Yeah. So it's a Cabernet Sauvignon with deep notes of bourbon. It has a nice aroma, nice flowery bouquet on top of it. But it has that nice deep flavor to go with any good meal. I enjoy this with pastas myself.
I don't know. I'm not getting the bourbon yet.
It's subtle. It's not overt. It's subtle. Yeah, but
it gives off a waft of I'm sophisticated.
Yeah,
frugal.
And honestly, the more it warms up, the more the bourbon flavor comes out. That's why this one, unfortunately, it wasn't in the fridge. As it warms up, more of the bourbon flavors come out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, but it's a very good wine. It's a great Cabernet Sauvignon. Never did I think I would be talking about how good the wines can be from Aldi's, but it's a really good wine.
I like Aldi's. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I
good job, Aldi's.
Yeah, I endorse it.
I'm about to go grab my quarter and head over right now.
But on bump. So that brings us to point 5, and that is Democrats' security concerns seem well-founded. Reporters and lawmakers noted the increased security presence around the Capitol. Congressman Seth Moulton of Massachusetts noted in his floor speech that there were more U.S. soldiers patrolling the Capitol than were stationed in Afghanistan. In general, there is a high sense of concern of another attack. Biden was briefed by officials from the Secret Service and the Federal Bureau of Investigation on security concerns for his inauguration. In a report from the Boston Globe, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley of Massachusetts found during the mob attack that the panic buttons were ripped out of her office. So that's point 5 from the Guardian's 5 points to take away.
So if the panic buttons were taken out,
obviously somebody was
and
inside.
a legitimate source said so, right?
Yep.
We're assuming.
So what happened was...
Are we assuming that the Proud Boys or someone like that did that?
Well, we do know.
No, it was one of those 3 congressmen that Ali Alexander said helped plan the attack.
Just don't call me a conspiracy theorist, okay?
Well, no, the dude said these 3 congressmen helped me plan it. We have video of congressmen letting people in. We don't know if it was intentional or not. And Ali Alexander deleted the video after people were like, "Yo, arrest this man."
Yeah.
And it's incriminating, and
what's going on?
This is probably not the last thing we're going to learn about what got taken out of there before the attack.
Oh no.
Exactly. What's going on?
They already hinted, and they haven't said whose briefcases or whose documents, but they already said that there was briefcases and personal items removed during the riot. So they did say there is currently a national threat that has been proposed once they were there, because these things are now missing. Briefcases are missing, documents are missing. So what did they take? We don't know. They're still assessing. Yeah.
As someone who is like, throw the book at the guy, this is probably my best argument for delaying impeachment-related activities, is we're still learning so much, and we're going to find out. I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but we're just going to find out. There's a lot of people who maybe in uncoordinated ways are kind of working towards the same goal, and I do think one of our kind of hero metrics for the health of the nation is going to be like how few or many months people like Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene and other people who, conspired with Ali, like how long they last in Congress. Like if they make it this whole term, I'm not optimistic about the health of our nation.
Just to clarify, I think it was 3 guys. I don't think that lady was involved.
Okay, well they've done other stuff too. They've been Lauren Boebert was the one who like tweeted the location of Speaker Pelosi like as the attack was going on.
Ouch.
How did she not get arrested?
Right.
Well, she carries a gun to Congress every day, so the police don't want to touch her.
Is that legal?
Nope. not in DC at least.
Yeah.
There are just so many holes.
Yeah.
So many. And this is why I'm not so quick to just jump on any party line.
Right.
Maybe all the evidence will point out that it was these groups that they say. Maybe it will. And I will have to say, yes, the facts all point to that. But until that point happens, I mean, I just think there are too many inconsistencies.
Yeah.
Same on 9/11. We had so much evidence beforehand of potential terrorists. We were warned, I don't know how many times. And then
save that for the conspiracy episode.
Let me get this straight. You're saying that people on the other end of the aisle, right-wing extremists, knew but wanted it to happen so that it would make Republicans look bad. I
don't know. I don't really know.
So we're going to save that for the conspiracy episode.
That's an interesting non-theory.
I'm just saying that it's interesting that, like the panic buttons were removed and these kind of things that allowed, and other things like that allowed it to get this carried away.
I mean, we do know they have already brought several policemen in that were part of the problem, right? So they already did say that there were several policemen that work for the Capitol that are already being pulled in for inquiry and possible conviction. So,
all right, last comment. And not to be on this subject. On 9/11, we found out that there were a lot of military exercises happening on the day of.
Yeah.
Government data. You can just look it up. That were trying to stop the very thing that actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be interesting to know if something like this, if there were exercises in place that were designed to prevent domestic terrorists from actually happening. And then, boops, it actually happened. Oh, look.
Why would they do that? Why? Why would you do a training at the time?
I don't know. Why wouldn't I?
Wouldn't they know from the last conspiracy and not do the training at the same time, though?
What's that?
Wouldn't they know from the last conspiracy theory about 9/11 not to do the training for the terrorist activities in the Capitol at the same time terrorist activities are happening?
No, I think it's actually a legitimate way for foreign and domestic policy to change drastically, instantly.
All right. So, to be continued in our conspiracy episode.
All right.
Okay, so to bring it away from conspiracy.
So
there was the guy 2 days ago. They announced that the guy coming in to lead the investigation of the security failures is Lieutenant Russell Honore, who they brought in during Hurricane Katrina or after Hurricane Katrina to fix what FEMA had broken in a similar way back then. And that guy's he was raised Catholic, so that's what I wrote that story about earlier.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Now, I'm going to end my stories, and then we'll move to Keith. And
or Nate.
All right.
Okay, then we'll move to Keith.
Let me do my homework.
The last, I actually have two things, but I'm going to say the other one if we get to it for the end. But Trump is losing friends. And that's my last takeaway for these Guardian articles, because these are all pulled from the Guardian and the AP. I'm going to leave that there because it says that Donald Trump has fallen out with his personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, and is refusing to pay the former New York mayor's legal bills. It was reported, with the president's feeling abandoned and frustrated during his last days in office. Giuliani played a key role in Trump's failed attempts to overturn the results of November's presidential election through the courts. The lawyer mounted numerous spurious legal challenges, traveling to swing states won by Joe Biden, and spread false claims the votes was rigged. Trump's refusal to pay Giuliani's bills is another blow to the former federal prosecutor. Giuliani is already under fire for his own alleged role in inciting Trump supporters to storm the Capitol building. Addressing Trump's Save America rally in Washington last week, Giuliani said, "I am willing to stake my reputation. The president is willing to stake his reputation on the fact that we're going to find criminality." He pointedly added, "Let's have trial by combat." Unquote.
Rudy gonna Rudy.
That's a real tough guy right there.
And he did say it. I heard it myself. I listened to the presentation live.
The number one piece of evidence that there is no justice in this nation is that Rudy Giuliani is still walking around.
Exactly.
I mean, that guy, holy crap. He can get away with anything. I mean, he doesn't totally get away from it because we all know he's an idiot except for whatever true believers are left. But, I mean, the guy's probably going to get pardoned in the next couple of days.
No,
He's
he was pardoned.
saying stupid crap. He was pardoned already? Rudy?
Yes.
When?
Yeah, Trump issued a preemptive pardon a couple weeks ago. He is pardoned. Yeah. Yeah. Go Google it. Go Google it.
I doom scroll all the time.
Oh yeah, he did a preemptive pardon for Giuliani and Kushner and a couple others.
Oh yeah, Jonathan Pollard.
Yep.
That's just me being a conspiracy theorist.
So yeah, he already did. He's done. He's good. He's fine. He can walk.
Glad. You know what? In this case, I'm glad Trump didn't pay his bills.
Then again, we may not need to do anything because Julian appears to be melting. So
Those two were meant for each other. They really were.
Join us in part 2 for the rest of the conversation.